Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, artists, amazing people, all over the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have another amazing guest. He is the founder of SCRYPT out of Zurich. His name is Norman Wooding. Norman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's kick things off and ask you first, what is your background and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the question. I'm going to be cheeky because what is logic, right? Is it your inherent logic or what other people think of you? I say this because my co-founder studied music and he's better at his job than people with the relevant degrees and experience. So that's just me tweaking at the question. So my background is academia and entrepreneurship. I studied economics and politics at the University of Lancaster. That's when I first got involved into crypto. I started mining in my university dorm, if you will. And then I studied management and strategy at the London School of Economics. I was still dibble-dabbling in crypto at the time, anything from arbitrage to mining to masternodes to DeFi to exploiting the Kimchi premium. I then taught the crypto course at London School of Economics about investments and risk management. And then I started SCRYPT. So my background really is academia, and I got into crypto in 2015, 2016. Anything else is internships, right? Or like small work experiences at Santander or Bloomberg. But my background is academia and entrepreneurship, and then the rest of the team, tech, banking, trading, etc.
Very cool. I'm trying to go the other way, but academia doesn't want me. Um,
I nearly did a PhD, right, just to keep the student life going, just to not become an adult. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So scripts, right? What is it all about, including your journey as a basement startup?
Sure. So simply, we're trying to make it easy for people, mainly companies, to trade crypto, to store crypto, and to earn on their crypto. We're regulated and based in Switzerland. We started as a two-man shop in my co-founder's parents' basement. Initially, it was my basement in London, but it was more of an attic. And then it was his parents' basement, where I assume both our parents thought we were laundering money or playing with magic internet coins. So it started that way. We were bootstrapped for 2 years. So it's classic startup, right? I'm not playing the violin, but pasta pesto, no sleep, 12-hour days, consistently in our pajamas working Monday to Sunday. COVID hit, which was even better because it allowed us to super focus. And after 2 years of super focusing, we traded close to 500 million. We thought that that gave us a good indication that we may have found a product market fit. So we raised a small round in 2021, grew the team. We're now close to 20 people. Since then, we grew the product, the service, the tech stack. We achieved additional regulation, and we just announced our strategic funding of 5 million yesterday. So really started in the basement, and now we have an office with shiny shares and tables and whatnot.
That's cool. I
Thanks.
uh, I started podcasting in my basement, and I graduated to the kitchen.
Well, I think in hindsight, it's 2020, right? And it's beautiful. It's really like motivational. I would never do it again. I'm not getting out of bed unless I do a 5 million seed round. I'm not doing it again. It was awful.
I understand. um, you are currently, we all are, right? So how are you successfully navigating the current global regulatory environment? Because things are happening fast and surprisingly so.
Yeah. I think it's tough. When I say it's tough, when I say global, I would remove the US from the equation. So we moved to Switzerland primarily because of the better infrastructure, regulatory framework, and clarity. And really, the key thing here is clarity. Because if regulators told you you couldn't do that, it's black and white. It's binary. Yes, no, yes, with certain constraints, no, with certain exceptions. What the US have done, they've gone, we don't know, right? How about you mess about and you find out? And there's a more articulate way to frame that. So from a global perspective, we're based and regulated in Switzerland. We have two entities, licensed and regulated. We're supervised by regulatory bodies like VQF and like FINMA. So we are well positioned and poised to carry out our existing activities, to offer our existing products and services, and to launch new ones. To stay that way, we don't touch the US. And we're also MiCA or MiCA compliant. We're setting up a relevant subsidiary, etc. So how do we navigate it? I mean, we're regulated and compliant. We have been since day one. We're in our third or fourth year of operations. We're audited annually. We have an auditor which sits on our board of directors. We use a leading law firm in Switzerland. One of their partners, Andreas Glarner, is one of our advisors and investors. So I think what we're good at is tech, is regulation, is knowledge. And what we need to do better at as a firm is just presence, brand awareness, and thought leadership. But on the regulatory side, I would say that's one of the first things we've locked down since 2020.
Interesting. You just completely excuse the US, and that makes sense.
Yeah, so I talked to my Swiss guys, right? The Justice League, the squad of lawyers and regulatory guys and compliance experts. And you know how they love to give you really simple answers, right? Their answer is, hey, Norm, SCRYPT can service US clients from a Swiss point of view. From a US point of view, Gary can wake up cranky and say, no, you're not allowed to do that, right? And you can do prop trading, you can set up a money servicing business, you can. The thing is, whatever you can do now, it doesn't change the wind of fate. So I can do everything in a very compliant manner according to my current level of understanding. And then in a week, they just change their mind. And I think that's what's terrifying, especially when you're a young startup with limited resources and you want to do things right. You don't want to play cat and mouse with the regulators. You don't want to play cat and mouse with the bank accounts. So if you tell me to wear a green shirt and I show up in a green shirt and then you slice my throat and you say, why are you wearing green? Well, I'm going to have PTSD and I'm not going to want to work in that jurisdiction or under that regulatory body.
That makes all the sense in the world. Does. So I want to talk about some crypto stuff then.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about Gary. What have you seen as the impact on Bitcoin's recent halving to so far, right? Except halving in April, right? And then what emerging trends are you noticing because of it?
So I think it's twofold, right? One is Bitcoin halving, and the other is the ETF. And I think the halving is time tested. It happens. It's not new, right? So we're like, okay, it's halving. It's deflationary. It's going to slice the mined Bitcoin by two. It's going to have an impact on the money supply. It's going to create good demand and a supply shock, and it all makes sense, right? So obviously there were some upgrades with this halving. There was some NFT stuff. And I think the fundamental difference is now we have an ETF. We have ETFs, which act as an anchor for demand for Bitcoin. If I'm not mistaken, I think the BlackRock one is around 20 billion. It has a 2 in it. It's either 2 or 20. It's one of the largest ones out there. And what I'm seeing is a validation or nod of approval by not only the institutions who have been doing it for several years, but by the infrastructure providers. So that is the ETFs, the ETPs, the stakeholders, the custodians, the market makers, the paying agents, and the whole family involved in creating this structure. So the trend really is an anchor of demand, institutional adoption, a change in reputation, right? We're getting taken a little bit more seriously now because we have ETFs, a facilitation of institutional capital inflow. And I'm not trying to just use smart words, but basically, big money in because now it's easier for them to come in. They don't have to worry about private keys, regulation, or otherwise. They can just access Bitcoin through their existing setup, brokerage account, or whatever else they use. And I think that's mainly it if we're just talking about Bitcoin trends. And I think it really caused the domino effect, right? So you have Bitcoin ETF US, then you have Hong Kong, then you have the ETH ETF. And so for me, it's really, I don't want to say the institutional capital is here because I hate sound bites, and they've said that every year. But we're taken way more seriously, and it's definitely facilitated stuff like the tokenization of the BlackRock money market fund, which hit, I think, 420 million in a couple of weeks. So it's basically like I got my parents' approval that the hobby that I was doing is somewhat validated and quote unquote an adult thing to do.
That makes sense. Institutions are here. The institution's reputation has improved. I don't think retail has. I want to find out your thoughts. I mean, yesterday after the conference, I walked around, Austin, the Consensus. I walked around the block, a few blocks, a few Texas blocks. and I found a water ice place. It was really good, and I was talking to two women in front of me in the line because it was a long line who were
Mhm.
volunteering at a different event. And they told me all about what they did and asked me what I was there, and I said I was there for the crypto conference, and they turned around and stopped talking to me. I'm like, okay, you know, um, how would we improve the reputation with that?
Yeah, but do you know what that reminds me of? And I'm going to flatter you here. When Bill Gates was on Ellen DeGeneres, I think Ellen DeGeneres or maybe another talk show 30, 40 years ago, and they start making fun of him because he says everything's going to be on the internet. So that's what that reminds me of, right? Is that the demographic? Are they innovators? Are they early adopters? Um, it's the reputation or kind of like it's it. It's the reputation behind and around it, right? If my mother asks me what do I do, and I say fintech, she's like, what does that mean? If I say crypto or Bitcoin, what does that mean? So I think we have to do a better job as a community to educate and to find simple words. It's very difficult to fix the reputation, right? When people talk about silly nonsense like Bitcoin consuming energy or being used for money laundering when it's inherently false and all the facts point towards the opposite. It's more accountable, it's more transparent. And you have the fiat legacy system, which is worse. And you have large banks, which I won't name, who are laundering money for cartels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we can go to a 1 hour conversation about dirty money and capitalism and the history and the function of money. What can we do to improve the reputation? I can tweet. We can speak on a podcast. I don't own Forbes. I don't run large conglomerates. I don't control the news cycles. And I don't spit out the same reused or recycled news articles which have sound bites and false information just to get views. So I think we need to put our head down, keep building, and ignore the noise. And in 30, 40 years, hopefully much, much sooner because of the rate of acceleration, we aren't the laughing stock anymore, right? But I completely understand you. For 2 to 3 years when I graduated, I was obviously building script, and my friends all worked in investment banks in London, and they were telling me, "What are you doing? It's a scam. Doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable because of the electricity demands. All this nonsense of uneducated opinions." I don't know how else to say this. Now I'm up. Right now, hindsight is 2020. Now those same guys who took 5 years to progress in a certain career are asking me for advice or what is my business model or what speculative trading strategies should they adopt or engage with in crypto. So I think focus, ignore the noise, keep your head down. Um, and I think that's all things in life, right? Who cares about other people's opinions? At the end of the day, what matters is you know, quote unquote, die with a smile on your face.
I agree. I agree. I don't have 30 or 40 years. I might have 30, but I don't have, I'm 53. I might not have 40 years. We'll see. I
Well,
might.
I could get hit by a truck tomorrow.
True. Um, Good point. So recently, we talked. We have to go back to the U.S. because
Mhm.
they approved Ethereum ETFs, and that happened very quickly. And of
Yeah.
course, people here they're very surprised. And Hong Kong did so recently too. What will be the impact of these two? We're going to call them milestones in the Ethereum life cycle.
I would say similar to Bitcoin, it just consolidates our place in the queue or in the institutional ecosystem or atmosphere. So similar to Bitcoin in terms of validating the asset class, in terms of opening it up to new distribution channels, and in terms of facilitating capital inflow. Um, I know there was some narrative around, and to me, this is funny. People were saying, okay, but they approved an ETF for Ethereum, but they didn't approve staking as a function or as an activity within the ETF. And I see that as, I don't want to say biting the hand that feeds you, but I think that's a bit silly and it has little to no impact on the ETF in and of itself. So I would say it's a milestone that we can't come back from, which is a very, very good thing. It's like, hey, it took us 2 to 3 years of hounding and crying and pushing you down, and you were doing stuff like meeting with Sam from FTX, and you were not being, you know who I'm alluding to. You were not being a good person, and now you've just YOLO approved all the ETFs. You can't come back. You can't unroll it. So I think it's good, right? Short answer is it's good, and damn, did it take them a while to approve them.
Yeah, it took them a little. It took them a little while. So I'm glad they did. I don't think they'd allow staking, but say somebody has, I guess, people at FTX are getting their money back, and they're going to be made whole. Say
Mhm.
they buy a node, or it takes 32 ETH to buy a node. How could they even do that now in this environment?
I mean, you can do liquid staking, right? You don't have to have 32 ETH to run a node, and you can do restaking, and you can rent out hashing power with like. There's a bunch of creative stuff. You don't need that minimal capital requirement to stake, is what I'm saying. So we run a bunch of nodes. Yes, the minimum amount or the minimum increment is 32 ETH. When ETH is 1 grand, it's tight. When it's 4 grand, it hurts, right? I get you. But you can do liquid staking.
Cool, awesome. So I want to change. I want to talk about a little bit about AI. Because I learned something new yesterday. I didn't put the two and two together, but I want to first find out, what do you see as the future look for both AI related tokens, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Um, so I speak to ChatGPT more than my anyone in my life, right? So I'm a big fan of AI, and not only the natural language programming and GPT, but DALI, image creation, reinforcement learning, machine learning, playing around with different algos, deep fakes. Like I love everything about it. It's terrifying and exciting at the same time. So I think if you're a speculative trader and you want to go crazy with leverage, this is not financial advice. Do as you will, right? Go crazy on meme coins, go crazy on AI coins. If we're talking about tokens in general, you have to realize that you're giving up money for no equity. And an ICO is a transfer of cash for nothing back. So that token has to represent something like Ethereum or Bitcoin, a store value, a way to transfer funds like Polkadot. It has to have something behind it. So if you just have a token, you say AI and it goes up, lucky you. But if that has an inherent utility within the ecosystem, from payment services, facilitating transfers, like it needs to have something. So I'm not a fan of everyone who just jumped on the bandwagon and slapped AI at the end of their company name or at the end of their token to raise more money. Maybe because I'm jealous, maybe because I have certain ethical standards. I'm not sure. Overall, I'm super, super bullish. I think AI has, and will continue to change things dramatically and drastically at a fucking crazy, and excuse my French, at a fucking crazy rate of acceleration and adoption. And I'm really interested in the user experience of how we interact with AI. You're not going to need, you don't have to be a prompt expert at a certain point, but you're not going to need to know how to code or do a website. You can just talk to it, book me a flight. Um, it's even undescribable because every day there's new demos or use cases or studies or apps or dApps which use blockchain or crypto or AI. And I think that's the beauty of it, is consistent 24/7, no sleep innovation. So super bullish, depends what aspect or area of AI we're talking about. It's going to remove intermediation as much as blockchain is or has intended to do so. And it's just going to be very cool, man. It's something I can talk about for 3 hours. And are we talking about blockchain in land registration, in voting, in corporate governance, in smart contracts? And then how does AI play into that? How does it alleviate the mediocre day-to-day mundane tasks? How does it improve efficiency? Like it's something we could start a podcast solely on.
Let's go. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's go down it a little bit. ChatGPT, I learned came aboard in 2016.
Yeah.
I thought it was like new within the last, since 2020. So, some interesting economic things happened in 2016. The U.S. voted for Donald Trump, right? And Amazon really took off as far as their stock price, because it had been like, low for years, and then 2016 happened. And so is there a correlation there with Amazon, with the call centers, and with ChatGPT?
Oh, that I have no idea, right? I'm a normal human being and I got GPT 2 or 3 at the same time as the public did. So it feels a bit like Facebook, right? You have to be part of Harvard or Yale in the community and then it rolls out to the wider world. I don't think correlation implies causation. I think if there was a correlation, I need to understand it better. Um, so I don't know. And what happened with Amazon at the time, you're saying the stock price went crazy. But I
Yeah.
think if you look at Nvidia today, it's worth more than Tesla and Amazon combined. So what was Nvidia doing, right? they and other key infrastructure providers are one of the underlying service providers for processing, for AI, for all that kind of stuff. So what were they doing in 2016? And they 100% saw it coming because they had a shortage of GPUs even when Ethereum mining, back when it was proof of work and not proof of stake, was kicking off. So I'm a big fan of them, and I would look more into that. But OpenAI has been around since 2016 or for longer because it was funded. They were working on it. There's a video of Sam, I believe it's Sam Altman. There's a video where he explains to investors that they haven't got a Scooby on how they're going to make money, but when they finish this model, they're going to ask it how to make money. So what year was that video?
I think 16, 17.
16 is that, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So you said another one of my favorite words that I'm learning is a favorite word of mine. That's called jealousy.
Yeah.
I missed the meme coin craze so far. Like I did not buy Pepe. I did not buy pork. I did not buy dog or cats or pigs with hats. I didn't buy any of that. Like, and I'm like not really good in understanding the social scene.
Yeah.
Look at utility and stuff. But a lot of people understand this social craze.
Yeah.
What do you see the future for these meme coins? Is something to work through or something that's going to stay?
I think it's going to stay. It's become speculative trading based on social status or euphoria or herd mentality. So I think there are some underlying economic concepts and behavioral economics and psychology, whatever else you want to call it. There are formal, normal, theoretical ways to explain this kind of behavior. At the end of the day, it's akin to gambling. And what is the probability of, I don't know, blackjack, Texas Hold'em, or roulette versus hitting the right meme coin? Okay, you can do more research. You can see the community. You can go on Discord. Are they actually building anything? Is it hype? Is it a rug pull? And all these beautiful or degenerate crypto terms or terminology. So trade it at your own risk. Sure, you can get rich. Sure, you can lose all your money. And I haven't done enough research to properly articulate a response, but my fear is that most of the capital behind these meme coins are people who just want to make a lot of money, an exponential return, and then cash out. Because when you scratch the surface, what is the underlying utility of a meme coin? And we could do something now, go on their website, download the white paper, look at the team, and you can get a pretty fair inkling within the first 5 minutes if this is a grab money scheme or if this is something which is going to deliver actual utility to an ecosystem. That being said, there's no right answer. I know projects who, not maliciously, I know projects who raised tens of millions with a unthought out, or let's say not advanced business plan, but that capital allowed them to really strategize, bunker down, and build a successful business. And I also know tokens which had a lot of promise, which didn't benefit from that herd mentality or that hype. But yeah, I like it, right? I see it as a kind of democratization of finance and of trading and kind of economic empowerment. And every time I'm on the train or the tram or traveling, there is some guy within my view site somewhere leverage trading Solana. No matter where I look in Zurich or in London, wherever it may be, I recognize the UI of various crypto exchanges. And to me, it feels like, oh, everyone's riding the bandwagon. I don't think the people I look at could tell you the difference between the blockchains, interoperability, Solana, smart contracts. But I think their motivation is I put money in, it go up, I take money out.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, I sat through a 1 hour wonderful presentation on the future of Avalanche
Yeah.
today, and I don't think most people that I know would understand that at all.
Well, they thought an avalanche was coming from the snow mountains, right?
Correct, correct. But so we'll see. I want to talk about the adoption of crypto Web3 is finance, and we're just talking about finance is not just finance, right? What would that look like in the future?
Do you mean crypto as a financial instrument being adopted in various use cases, or do you mean blockchain technology?
Uh, Crypto and blockchain technology, like the future of finance used to be,
Yeah.
stocks and bonds, be just plain finance.
Yeah.
Now has many different variables, right? So
So
what?
I think yeah. I think it's definitely an imagination land, right? So all asset classes will be tokenized for better efficiency, and that has various deterministic factors, anything from centralization of authority and control to immutability to transparency to accountability, etc. So if I'm a private organization, is it more efficient to tokenize my trading activities or my stocks or my bonds? Yes or no? If no, don't do it. If yes, great. But does that increased efficiency come with a lack or a mitigation or a diminished power or control over what happens within my ecosystem? I.e., is it a permissioned blockchain or not? So then we really go into it. And for me, it's just about making things easy and stupid proof. And stupid proof to me means human proof, right? I would have much more confidence in a smart contract. You pay me to wash your car, I wash it, I get paid. Versus human, you didn't wash this. No, I don't believe it. No, it's still dirty. Let's go to a judge. Okay, jury of your peers. So maybe I've taken it way too extravagant, but I think efficiency is key, and efficiency will be brought about in various industries, sectors, and domains with blockchain, with AI, and with crypto. And crypto is more a ledger or a database. I know that's the literal definition of a blockchain, but to me, the reason you have a coin is because you're moving something around, right? Because you need some proof of ownership or some reward or an airdrop or a voting mechanism. There needs to be utility for the coin. Blockchain is somewhat more exciting is that you don't need to have a coin. You can use it for corporate governance, for voting, for smart contracts, for aligning principal agency motivations, i.e., you don't need a contract to monitor someone and to punish them and reward them with bonuses if everything is efficient and somewhat automated and you have various technological input data mechanisms, then you can automate, your entire life. You can look at land registration, you can look at supply chain. Like there is no answer because there is no end to the potential of how we could improve by innovating and using technology.
Got it. So I want to. Interesting. So
That's normally when I scare people off at Christmas parties.
I scare them off at Thanksgiving. So we're like, um, so ongoing interest, and we talked about ETH staking, right? And concern about centralization, right? How do concerns about centralization impact institutional adoption? Um,
Mm.
are they going to like how are they looking at it?
I'd have to be a fly in the room, but for me, when I referenced centralization, I meant the authority, right? Like CBDCs looking at everything, having the power to stop the blockchain, if that makes sense. So to halt transactions, to freeze it, to whitelist or blacklist an address, to transfer funds, like the authority that certain permissioned blockchains or blockchains who appear to be decentralized but have a large number of validators or masternodes or people involved with the corporate governance, in fact, centralized. So that's where I was coming from. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the concern institutions may have on centralization is as quote unquote simple as okay, where are all of the ETH masternodes technically? Are most of them in the US? Or is ETH now a US asset? Is it deemed and classified under the relevant jurisdiction and regulatory constraints? And I think that's the fear. I think that's a bit nonsense because, I mean, we can be technical, we can be philosophical, but borders are borders. And if I want to mine in Kazakhstan or the Maldives or the US, I think equating centralization or presence to being accountable to that jurisdiction is just silly. Um, but I think a lot of people are going to fight me off that, so I won't go down that route. I think it's an unearned argument. It's a narrative which will slowly fade away. You saw similar when a lot of the Bitcoin miners were in China. People were saying, "Oh, it's a Chinese currency," and then they moved to Texas, and then there was a whole riffraff around that. But I think it's noise, and it kind of takes us away from what we're trying to achieve. And I would focus on the positive. Even that's a misstatement because focusing on the positive implies there's a negative. Um, I don't see it as a cause for concern unless it's brought up by other people. So some regulators in Europe may say you can't stake here because it turns out you're using a staking as a service provider who's in Delaware, therefore you're classified as trading with the US and you may need to be regulated there. And does the US view you running nodes in their jurisdiction as you taking capital out, and whatever silly nonsense they can come up with at any given point in time to create leverage that didn't exist before. These are my opinions. So they may not be the most frictionless, let's say.
That's a good word, frictionless. I like that. um, I never had a problem. I always thought more Ethereum was in the Europe because during the ICO days, I was ICO advisor, and people in Europe wanted to pay me Ethereum, and no one in the US wanted to pay me in Ethereum. So
I think probably yes, but then staking kicked in, and the largest companies from Figment to Kiln to Block Daemon and the largest staking providers, if I'm not again mistaken, that they're in the US.
yeah, yeah, okay. And then there we didn't touch upon NFTs, right?
Mhm.
They took a hit since FTX, right?
Yeah.
But now it looks like they're coming back, and it looks like the industry is recovering from FTX. What do you see happening in the next year or so for blockchain and crypto?
Well, I think NFTs act as a sort of like a cherry on top in terms of the cycle, right? You can say it's Bitcoin frenzy, it's altcoin season. And I think when NFTs came in, they became a social status, a way to unlock a variety of different rewards or incentive mechanisms. And now I think it's become part of the cycle. Like you really consolidate the whatever it is, right? I'm trying not to give financial advice here. You consolidate something and then you put it in an NFT and you wait for the market to follow the same 4 to 3 year cycle based on various macroeconomic factors, based on US, Fed, central banks, fiscal monetary policies, etc. There are people much smarter than me at these sort of let's call them hypothesis or theories or inklings. And again, I'm trying not to give financial advice. So that's one opinion. And I mean, put it super informally, what's the future for blockchain and crypto? Up, 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 baby. But up, up, up. I don't want to be quoted in terms of price. I want to be quoted in terms of action, transactions, building, innovation, GitHub repositories, developments, people flocking to it, use cases, integrations. Like it's just going to become maybe omnipresent is the wrong word to use, but it's going to become seamless, right? My mom should be able to trade Bitcoin without knowing she's trading Bitcoin, without worrying about a private key and chain analysis and all this other nonsense, which we don't worry about in the banking system. So I think user experience is key. Adoption is key. Regulatory frameworks, infrastructure, and trusted counterparties are key. Because when you don't have trusted counterparties, you have FTX, you have a year of darkness in our industry in every aspect, right? Mood, sentiment, people losing their life savings. It was not good, and I have a lot of bad things to say about it because I'm not just talking about the institutions who lost 5 million because they were doing arbitrage and didn't really care about counterparty risk. I'm talking about people who had their life savings. I'm talking about FTX employees who put everything on FTX because Sam told them to. I'm talking about the people in jail who maybe shouldn't be in jail, and the people not in jail who should definitely be in jail because of that. And the domino catalyst effect it had on everyone in the space, our reputation, and how others in traditional finance perceived us, especially because he put egg on the face of large institutions who funded him to the tune of 1 billion, right? And it showed that they were doing YOLO investments, no due diligence. Sam was the only guy on the board of directors. He had no control mechanisms, full decision-making power. And then we go to a full rant about you're supposed to be the adults in the room and you allow an ETF and that validates what we're doing, but you gave 1 billion to a kid who was on methamphetamine with curly hair. What is going on? Is this a movie? Are we in a Netflix series?
It sure feels like a movie.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been an enjoyable conversation. I have one last question, and
Mm.
it's really easy. It's how can people find out more information about you, about Script, start to use, you guys to help them in their crypto journeys. How can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So type in script on your internet browser, Firefox, Google Chrome, or otherwise. It's SCRYPT.Swiss, SWISS. Reach out to me or any person from the team, and we're happy to help or talk or chat or debate anything from regulation to technology to innovation to Bitcoin versus meme coins. But feel free to reach out, and we're always trying to be very accommodating and responsive.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me, man. Enjoyed it.